I want to start today with something the VA itself has documented. When women are screened in VA healthcare, about 1 in 3 say yes. Yes, they experienced military sexual trauma during their service. 1 in 3. That's not a fringe number. That's a wave of women carrying something the system is only now learning to meet them on. But here's the piece of the VA rulebook that stopped me cold. There's a specific federal regulation, 38 CFR 3.304 F5, and it exists precisely because lawmakers acknowledged a truth you already know. These things are almost never reported in the moment, in uniform. So the regulation says the VA can look at evidence from outside your service records to support your claim. No police report, no formal complaint, no paperwork from the time required. The rule was built for the reality survivors actually live. The rules look the way they do today because people fought for years to change them. A bipartisan group of lawmakers, several of them veterans and survivors themselves, pushed, hearing after hearing, to change how the military and the VA handle these cases. Because of that pressure, the VA built specially trained teams that handle MST claims, and the evidentiary standard was deliberately shaped to match what survivors actually experience rather than demanding proof that, by the nature of the trauma, usually doesn't exist. The system is still evolving, but you're walking through a door other women forced open. The VA can use evidence from outside your service records to support an MST claim. No report at the time, no formal paperwork now. That protection is federal law. Let's look at how the law actually defines military sexual trauma. Under 38 U.S.C. 172(0)d, it's psychological trauma resulting from a physical assault of a sexual nature, battery, or sexual harassment that happened during your service, and the law specifically includes repeated, unwanted verbal or physical contact of a sexual nature that felt threatening. Here's why that exact framework matters. Most people picture one extreme scenario when they hear trauma, but the legal definition is wider than that. It can include being pressured by someone in your chain of command, unwanted touching, threatening remarks about your body. It can cover things that happened off base, off duty, or during drill. I'm never going to tell you what your experience was. That's not my place. But what I'll tell you as someone who studies this system closely is this. If any part of that federal definition matches something you carried home, that connection belongs in your file. The law was written to recognize it. I want to be honest about why your official record might not match your actual life. We know about 1 in 3 women screen positive for MST in VA care, but here's what the research shows about the records themselves. In one VA study of women veterans, about 35% had MST documented in their official medical record, but when the same women were asked privately through a confidential survey, about 61% disclosed it. That gap, roughly 1 in 4 women whose MST never made it into the official file, is the system failing to capture the truth, not the women failing to tell it. And that gap is wider for Black and Latina women whose experiences were even more likely to be missing from the record. Researchers have a name for this kind of structural failure: institutional betrayal. So if you're looking at your own chart right now and you see a negative MST screen, understand this. The checkbox is what failed. Maybe the moment didn't feel safe. Maybe the question was rushed. The record says no, while you carried the full weight home. That administrative no does not have to be the end of your story. Here's how this becomes an actual rating. The VA doesn't rate MST itself. There's no disability code for it. It rates the health conditions the trauma caused or worsened. Most often that's PTSD, but it is far from the only door. Chronic trauma changes the body, and it can show up across a woman's file in many forms: depression, anxiety, and panic conditions, sleep problems, chronic pain, and other conditions. Each of those, when properly documented and connected, can be its own rateable piece that builds toward your combined rating. And one practical note worth knowing: some advocates suggest filing for a mental health condition broadly rather than naming only PTSD, because other mental health conditions can follow a different evidence path. If you filed years ago and were denied, The landscape has genuinely changed. A door that felt shut may not be anymore. I want to leave you with this. One practical tool, and it's gentler than sitting down tonight to write an essay about the worst thing that happened to you. Trauma doesn't live in a straight line, and forcing it onto paper can feel overwhelming. So we change the focus entirely. Instead of documenting the event, you look for what the regulation calls behavioral markers. Think of it as a quiet scavenger hunt through your own history. Lawmakers asked if a woman lived through something she couldn't report, how would it show up in her records afterward? A sudden, unexplained request to transfer units or bases, an uncharacteristic dip in performance reviews, or sudden disciplinary marks after years of clean service, a spike in sick call visits. And this one matters. If you told a roommate, a family member, or anyone you trusted back then, a statement from them now, confirming they noticed a change in you, is recognized as valid evidence. That transfer request, that dip in your marks, those aren't missing clinical records, they're the ripples the event left behind. And here's a protection most veterans don't know. The VA is not allowed to deny an MST-based PTSD claim without first telling you that this kind of outside evidence can support your case and giving you the chance to provide it. You don't have to prove the event. You point to the footprints it left, a transfer request, a drop in performance, a person you told. The regulation recognizes those as evidence. So, how do you file for military sexual trauma? You start by recognizing you're not filing for the event. You're filing for what it cost you, the anxiety, the depression, the panic, the conditions that came home and are still with you, and you hold on to the law written to protect you, 38 CFR 3.304F5. You are not required to report it then. You are not required to have traditional military proof now. What you need is your story, told your way. You are fully capable of taking the reins of your own file, and you have every right to make the best decisions for you and your family. If there's a hurdle I didn't touch on, tell me in the comments. I read them, because this community is how we learn from each other. If today's conversation brought up something heavy, please be gentle with yourself and know the VA offers free MST-related care, whether or not your claim is service-connected and regardless of how you were discharged. Nothing here is a promise of any particular rating. Every claim is different. What we give you is the cleanest way we know to execute. For Guard and Reserve, women veterans, step-by-step, or benefits news, subscribe to the channel that fits your fight. Before you go, keep the marker finder. It walks you through the behavioral markers the regulation recognizes: a transfer request, a change in your performance, a spike in sick call visits, a person you told, so you can quietly check what already exists in your history. It is pinned at the top of the comments. So tell me, which marker were you surprised to learn counts? I read every comment. The report was never the thing standing between you and your claim. There is someone inside the VA whose whole role is connecting you to MST care, and that care becomes part of your record. The next video is how an MST coordinator strengthens your claim. This was always kept in the dark. Now, together, we bring it into the light.